Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Board Game Bunker podcast. My name is Nate, and this is Ryan.
Hello, everyone.
We're going to be hopefully talking through some of the not only games that we enjoy and games that we want to play, but also get a little bit more into kind of the deeper end of our hobby and really discuss the ins and outs of certain games and why we like certain games and how we can improve games, and also like just looking at why certain games appeal to us, or even going about how do we go about finding games that we want to play. So there's lots of different topics to discuss in this hobby, and we are excited for you to come join us in this hobby. So Ryan.
Yeah, Nate.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what games you're interested in and how you got to this point to start a podcast.
Sure. Well, growing up, all I knew was Ameritrash, effectively. So, your classic Monopoly and Sorry and things like that.
Okay.
Or, classic war game Risk.
Oh, yeah. That's a war game.
I got that
sure.
for my 9th birthday, and I was all about it. So I grew up, enjoying a game, Clue or things like that. But I wasn't really a big fan of board games in general because I thought that's just what there was growing up as a child of the 90s. At the time, that's what there was, effectively.
Okay.
And then in 2008, one of my best friends gave me this game called Catan for my birthday. And my world was rocked. Literally, my board game world was rocked in the sense that, wait, there's a game that, there's dice in the game, but it's more based off the actions that you choose to do rather than randomized luck. So I loved Catan. I got Seafarers and I got Cities and Knights, and that was it for a long time. I thought, oh, this is where board games have peaked. A few years later, this probably would have been about 2012 or so, another friend introduced me to a game called Railways of the World. Oh. And this game blew my mind because this is the first game I had ever played that had effectively zero chance. The chance was in how the board was set up, and once a turn, a random card could come out that you could purchase, but most people didn't even do that.
Okay.
So it was all based on your own strategy.
Interesting.
So this is my introduction into the Euro world, effectively.
Okay.
And realizing that, wow, there are games that, it's all based on your own strategy and your own skill. And what the other player does matters for sure, but it's not, I got this great strategy, oh, I didn't roll a 6 again, and I keep rolling 1s, and I'm just frustrated, kind of like Risk.
Right, at the whim of the dice.
Exactly. So I've developed into effectively a hardcore Euro gamer, but someone, and I give you total props for this, introducing me to the beauty of what a war game can offer. So I'm carefully dipping my toes into that world as well. I have a Jest of Robin Hood, I believe that's how you call it. So Rodney Smith calls it in his video, so I'm going to go with that.
Yep, that's right.
That's my first GMT game.
Okay.
It's coming, the second edition printing, it should be coming any week, any day now.
And I believe it's titled the Irregular Combat series.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to delve into that world. I'm always going to be a Euro gamer at heart. I'm sure that 90% of my collection will always be Euro games.
Right.
But some of my favorite games are War of the Ring, which is a Euro game, and Root, which is a war game.
Yep.
I'm sorry, War of the Ring is a war game. I think I said Euro.
Correct.
But both of them are war games, kind of more disguised on the Euro side of things.
Yep.
Even Star Wars Rebellion, that's one of my favorite games of all time. And that's a war game, but it has a Euro feel to it.
Absolutely. So. I mean, there's a whole sort of hot topic discussion about defining what a war game is. If you go on BGG and go on some of the forums, you see page after page of people yelling at one another of what the definition is. And really, the definition is so fluid because there's so many different topics that can be included into a war game that more or less I remember hearing once on someone's YouTube video that basically if you think that it's a war game, then it's a war game.
Sure.
I mean, generally speaking, we do define war games as either a historical conflict that it's trying to simulate or an actual, like a fantasy conflict that it's trying to simulate. There's not...
with a minimum of 2,000 counters to clip.
That's right. Oh, you got to clip the counters.
Oh, no.
You got to get all the fuzzies off of it.
That's what I'll give them to you to do. When Nate told me that, I sit here and clip thousands of counters, I'm like, you've lost your mind. And realize, that's what they do in the war game world.
That's right. Absolutely. Sit and watch a documentary and just clip away until
I was watching a video recently on a company, I think in the Czech Republic, that prints board games. It was printing Euros, and part of the process, they kind of clip everything.
Oh, okay.
And you see all the shards of all the clippings. But how'd you get into board gaming, Nate?
So, I've always been interested in board games, but really my entrance into the wargaming space, I'd always played back in the past when I was younger, Axis and Allies, and I kind of had thought that was sort of the peak of war games. I'm kind of like how you thought that Risk was for a long time. And it really wasn't until back in 2018 that when I was doing graduate school, that I was invited over to a professor's house for the department had a Christmas party, and it was at a professor's house, and I was invited over there because I was a graduate worker.
Sure.
Go over there, and the professor said, "Hey, y'all want to see my war game room?" I'm like, I have no idea what this is. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
So we go upstairs, and we go in this big room, big table and everything, and he starts pulling out game after game after game on these really interesting historical topics. One on like the Roman Empire and the Civil War and the Napoleonic Wars. My mind is just blown. As what I had no idea that there were these kind of games. I asked him, how long have they been around? He goes, they've been around for decades. I'm like, where have I been?
Right. Since the fall of the Roman Empire, if I'm not
mistaken. That's right, exactly. And so no sooner than I got home, I spent a bunch of time on the GMT website, Compass Games website, trying to figure out what's going to be my first war game.
Yeah.
And it ended up buying, it was called The Dark Sands.
Yeah, I remember mentioning that
by
one.
Ted Racer, GMT. It's on North Africa in World War II. And that was my first sort of major war game that I had bought and played and loved it. Really liked the game. And then ever since then, I've just been headlong diving into this hobby. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, not only do I enjoy, obviously, playing games, both solitaire and with people, but I also have been enjoying kind of getting more into expressing how much I enjoy this and talking about it with other people. Not only through this podcast, as we're going to do, but also I've been part of another show.
For a year now.
For last year, called The War Room with Rough Swordsman Wargamer on YouTube and ID Gesture on YouTube.
It's a good show. If you haven't checked it out, you really should.
And
you guys have a lot of fun.
It's been fun. So if you want to see a little bit more discussion about war games, then you can go to the War Room show that happens every Saturday. But we'll obviously be talking about war games on this show too.
Sure.
Because I'm a war gamer.
Right.
So it's been a fun journey so far into wargaming. I would say that the type of wargamer that I am is I really like the big monster games.
For sure.
I
like
love
the campaigns in North Africa.
Exactly. I'd love to play that at least once, just to say I have an experience with it. I don't want to spend $1,000 for a copy, though.
If you don't know, this game can take 10 years to play.
Yes. In fact, it might take you longer to play Campaign for North Africa than the actual campaign in North Africa
Maybe the entire World War II.
That's right. Exactly. This is... I'm the type of gamer. I like the big monster games. I like having lots of maps and counters out. I love being able to have a lot of control over what's going on in a game. But also, I love games that tell a story, that tell a narrative. That's one of the big things that I really like about history is all of the stories that are in there. And I really enjoy games that not just have the ability to recreate history, but also have the ability to do alternate history, as well as a game that can generate its own narrative based on what's going on.
Right.
So that every playthrough is a different experience and what happens. And so
it's a way to experience history in a way. Exactly.
And I kind of like to do where if I'm reading a particular history book, I like to play a game that deals with that, because I'm a very much of a visual learner.
Sure.
So I like being able to kind of experience the history and interact with it while I'm also reading about it as well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't know, Nate is a historian. He's getting his PhD in history. He's in his dissertation right now. So within a few, maybe not within a few episodes, but very shortly, it'll be Dr. Nate on the show.
We'll see. We shall see. Yes, doing mine on the end of the Roman Empire on Attila the Hun, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so Nate brings a really good perspective, because not only can he speak to those games, but he can speak to the history behind it, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, there's you'll see in some future episodes when we talk about certain games that we enjoy a lot, that there are some games that I think really cover the history well in that game and gives you an experience experience that not only do you get to understand what was going on in the historical context, but you also get to understand what people were thinking in these wars and why certain decisions were made, because you're faced with those same decisions. Exactly right. Now, let me ask this about Eurogames, though, because there's obviously not a lot of conflict in Eurogames. That's kind of the main thing of not having conflict. So what is sort of the main driver for that competition, though, in Eurogames? Obviously, someone has to win.
Right.
And it's not devolving into kinetic warfare.
Right.
So what is sort of the main driver?
So one of the games that I absolutely love as an example is viticulture.
Okay.
And viticulture is basically, it sounds really dumb on paper, but it's one of the best games of all time, in my opinion. You're basically doing kind of grape growing and winemaking and fulfilling wine orders in Tuscany, Italy, effectively. It's really relaxing, really fun worker placement game. And I'm going to use this as an example. I played it recently with some family, and me and my brother-in-law were just going all out on the strategy, trying to do the best we could. And some other family members, they were just kind of chill there, along for the ride, and having fun, but kind of couldn't care less if they won or lost. We all had a fantastic time, effectively, because you're playing yourself in a way. You're also playing the board. You're also playing other players. There are ways to block other players and things like that. But ultimately, you are competing in a way against your own strategy. You're saying, okay, is this strategy that I'm executing, can I do this in a way that will get me the right number of victory points, for example? Euros are really big on multiple ways to earn victory points, multiple ways to win.
So is this really kind of the defining characteristic that you really enjoy about Euros?
Absolutely, is that you can just kind of delve in and try a ton of different strategies, and it doesn't really matter, I say that glibly, but it doesn't really matter in a way what your opponent does. It does matter, but what you do is more important than what your opponent does.
Because it's not really a lot of dice rolls.
It depends on the game. So a lot of times what how Euro games differ from other games is, so for example, a war game that has dice rolling is you choose an action and then you roll to see if you're successful or not. Euro, use classic Catan as an example. Basically, you do your dice rolling first, and then you get results from that, and then you take your actions. So the dice rolling, if there is chance, usually happens ahead of time. And then you can make your choices based off that. So instead of crafting this grand strategy, I didn't get the right dice. You roll the dice first, see what you get, and then craft your strategy from there. So it adds some randomness to it.
So that's something in war games that some war games, not all of them, are very dice dependent. And that can create a lot of randomness in the game. And some games, it works out in that mathematically you look at the percentages of certain die being rolled and it sort of evens out over time. But some games, it really does come down to one simple die roll at the end. And those are the type of games that I have found that people don't generally enjoy. Is that you spend hours of strategizing and it comes down to one die roll. And there's nothing that mitigates that at all.
I think a lot of times what will help mitigate those things is if you have certain maybe abilities or cards or mechanisms to help influence the dice. So I use War of the Ring, which we played last year as an example. Basically, if you have certain cards that will allow you to, if you play this card, and it'll allow you to increase your chances of success. So maybe instead of you need a 6 to succeed, you can get a 5 or a 6. Kind of playing with the odds a little bit. Or if you decide to retreat into like Helm's Deep, for example, it makes your opponent have to roll a 6, and they can only roll once. Whereas if you're on an open battlefield, you can just keep going back and forth as much as you want. So I found that we use the term dice chucking games. They can be more enjoyable if there is a chance to let the player influence it a little bit. Don't give them full authority or omniscience over making those kind of changes, but like, I've got this one card, I'm going to save it for this one opportune moment. And maybe I can use that to kind of just the best time, change the course of the game.
I mean, that's been something that I know for myself personally that I've begun to really try to delve into a lot this past year, and that is solitaire games. Solitaire games are very dependent on dice rolls. And there's some solitaire games where, like an example would be B-17 Queen of the Skies. It's a very old game about you as a B-17 bomber. And the game more or less kind of just happens to you. And you don't have, my understanding, and I haven't played it, but I've seen it played before, is you don't have much control over what's happening. More or less you roll die and look at a chart and see what's happening to you. And some solitaire games like that I don't generally enjoy because I don't feel I have any agency of what's going on.
Right.
Whereas something like an example would be Mr. President from GMT, where you as the player, even though it's a solitaire game, that you as the player have a lot of agency, not necessarily on maybe some certain individual things that happen to you in the game, but you have agency in terms of creating the right conditions.
Absolutely.
So that events may then start moving your direction.
For sure.
Whereas some games, like I mentioned, you just roll a die and there's a chart. And it's not as fun.
Absolutely.
As me being able to actually guide what I want to do.
Exactly. I love games that add randomness to it, but you can still kind of take even more actions to mitigate in the sense of, so I'll give an example, Arkham Horror, the card game, which is a fantastic game that I've been playing with my friends.
I have not played it yet.
It's good.
I definitely want to.
It's good. We should do a live stream on
that would be great.
That'd be fun. Let's
Let
do
us
it.
know in the comments if you wanted us to play Arkham Horror live.
And get destroyed. So one of the things you can do is you're fighting monsters effectively, and every single time you're going to basically make an engagement, you pull a token from random out of what's called the Chaos Bag. This could help you. It could give you like a +1, +2. More likely than not, it'll give you -1, -2, -4 instant failures. So, if for example, if you know that there's a -4 in there, I could play a bunch of extra cards to try to overcome that, knowing that I might waste those cards because I may have pulled a 0 or a +1 in my favor. So it's how much are you willing to spend to overcome the possible negative consequences in a way. And it's almost guaranteed.
But you have the ability to strategize that out.
Exactly, right. It's almost guaranteed if you have the right cards, you can succeed, but how much of that are you willing to spend now that you won't have next time?
I see.
So it's a mental game you play with yourself. But the game still gives you some of that randomness that is necessary in a lot of games.
That's really cool. Really cool. Well, for people who are just tuning in and watching this channel for the first time, I think it'd be a good opportunity for us to kind of explain, what is the Board Game Bunker?
Absolutely.
And what's our purpose in here? We're not just uploading videos just for the heck of it.
We're not, really?
We do have a purpose for why we want to do this channel. So I know for myself, I really want to not only express the wargame hobby and kind of share that joy of wargaming with other people who may or may not be exposed to that yet, to kind of introduce people to games that I think that they might enjoy, and maybe provide some guidance on like how to play some war games. And war games can be very complex, and I think that there's definitely needed in the YouTube space some guidance on how to play certain war games.
And Nate's a teacher at heart.
I am.
And by trade, so he's very good at teaching.
I have been a teacher for a lot of years, so yes, but that's kind of what I want to do. And what's sort of your goal from the Euro end for the Board Game Bunker?
So a little bit different because there are fantastic tutorials on how to play out there already for most Euro games. So I don't really want to kind of reinvent the wheel in a way. I want to kind of do a couple different things. I want to do videos that are more of like, is this game right for you in a way? So more of an objective look. I mean, it's hard to do things completely objectively. But for example, I'm just going to use Catan because that's a basic example, even though, I've grown beyond Catan, so I still love it. But, I have a lot of other games beyond that. I'm just using that as an example. I love cinematic videos. Ultimately, that's my background is in videography, cinematography. So I would love to craft very well-produced videos that kind of give players, maybe within 5 minutes, a taste of what the game is like. Not a playthrough, not a tutorial, but within this game, this is what you'll be experiencing. These are the types of moves you'll have to make. These are the types of choices you'll have to make, the types of conflicts, mechanisms you'll encounter, and do it in a very cinematic format. And kind of give players the open-ended kind of thought from there. Is this right for you or not? I'm not going to come to that video and say, "In this game is right for you." I don't want to encourage FOMO. I want to just kind of lay it out there and say, "Here's what the feel of the game is. This might be right for you, it might not be, but here's a tool in your toolbox to help you make that decision."
I think it's great. It's awesome. Because that's one thing that I know that both of us, that we've talked about when we were discussing putting this show together, this podcast together, is that we really want to not only express how much we enjoy this hobby with other people, but also give people the tools that they can then go out and figure out, what do I like and what kind of games do I like? Will I like this game, and how do I play this game? And I think that's something that I think is missing on the YouTube side. There's a lot of reviews, which is fine. People want to do those. But sometimes when I watch a review, it doesn't quite give me the information of whether or not that game is going to be something that
right for
I
you.
enjoy.
Exactly.
That person may enjoy it, but I want to know, will I enjoy it as the player? Because ultimately, for a lot of war games, I'm going to be first playing it by myself
For sure,
to
Solitaire.
figure it out,
Right.
before I ask anyone else.
Absolutely.
So,
well, the unique perspective we're both bringing is you as a primary war gamer, me as a primary Euro gamer.
Yeah.
Is we can play games together and just bring different perspectives.
Right.
If you teach me, Nate's taught me Atlantic Chase, fantastic war game.
Right.
And it's a way for the audience to maybe see, will a Euro gamer like that?
Yeah.
And I plan on teaching you a bunch of
yeah.
heavy Euros, and Nate might hate those, but that's okay. Then if you're a war gamer, you can say, well, as a war gamer, will I like this or not?
Right.
So different perspectives.
And something else too is that we want to show, and hopefully our interaction will show through these podcasts, is that war gamers and Euro gamers can actually interact well with one another, and we can enjoy both hobbies, both sides of this hobby, and not say that, well, we can't play Euro games or we can't play war games. No, we can enjoy them all.
Exactly.
We can enjoy games because they're fun.
Right. And I think part of the beauty of kind of our hobby is, I mean, yeah, it is about the games, but it's also about the people. Like
Yes.
I told you, Nate, like I don't care what game we choose to play. It's just fun to hang out.
Exactly.
And so if you want to play a heavy war game, I'll play it. I might not like it, but it's in the fun and the interactions of a friendship, ultimately.
Exactly. Well, we want to thank you so much for coming and watching this first episode of the Board Game Bunker podcast. Be on the lookout for more episodes because we have a lot to talk about.
Indeed.